G'day, guys, and welcome back to the Supercoach Swordplay channel. You're on with me, Janath. I'm joined by Ross and DR for the Round 23 review and the Round 24 preview for Gameday Squad 2025. We're into the last week of the regular season. Can you believe it? Now, I know that Gameday Squad, some of the rankings haven't updated. Thankfully, Rossco and I, we were able to get some of our rankings down before some of these updates have gone ahead. I'll kick us off. So finished not too good in the starter competition, but 22nd in Contender and 6th overall for the week in Classic. So really happy with that. The All-Star Sheasel definitely paid off. A score of 215. Mate, that is ridiculous. Cal from Gameday Squad has confirmed that is the highest ever score recorded by Gameday Squad with the starter card. So fair play if he did have a diamond off him out there playing in competitions. And yeah, up into, I think, stuck in fifth overall in Contender. So hopefully one more round to go can stick inside the top 10 in Contender. Rossco, how'd your round look in round 23?
Yeah, same as you, mate. Nothing in starter, but I believe I got to the mid-30s in Contender and Classic. Now, I've got a bit of a funny one in terms of my Contender team this week. I think it's hard to tell without looking at the points totals exactly, but I've got a bit of a coach killer story for Contender. I've ended up with Riley Sanders, 8 in my forward line as the sub for the Western Bulldogs. Now, building my teams on Friday, I put him in and dropped a message on the Discord on the trade table. Anyone have an Aaron Norton? Thinking Norton against the Eagles. I'll play Darcy against the Eagles as well, and both of them should kick a bag. Now, in order to sort of do that, to get one, I just put in a player who shared the same fixture, and that happened to be Sanders. And then was busy Saturday, didn't get my Norton, and then went out on Sunday. And when it was like 10 minutes into the game, they popped up the little graphic on the side of the screen that said subs for West Coast Western Bulldogs. And I saw Sanders, and I was like, hang on a minute, I think I've played him here. I didn't get Aaron Norton. And then sure enough, it came on in the last quarter. It scored 8. And I finished in the mid-30s. So I don't know if I'd gone with someone else who scored 100, what I would have gotten up to. But Riley Sanders didn't go my way. I mean, he could have even not been sub and probably still gone all right. But just the fact that he managed to be sub as well was a bit of a killer for me. So it is what it is. It was pretty funny.
Oh, that's unfortunate, mate. And DR, how'd your round go, mate?
Look, I honestly don't exactly know because they haven't been updated. But to be quite honest, I don't think that I want to see the updated results because a couple of pod selections didn't quite go my way. I thought someone like Timmy Taranto would come out and absolutely dominate. I went with LDU this week as a bit of a late pod who did the job for me. But overall, boys, nowhere near the top 20 in any competition this week. But I'm pretty confident if I listen carefully to your locks, avoids, and pods during tonight's podcast, that I'm going to have a banger end to the season, boys. So not a great round 23, but look out. I'm coming for everyone in round 24.
Love to hear that, mate. And look, I think round 24, this is where you swing big. If you've got nothing to lose, swing big, swing for the fences, try get that last cash prize or pack prize before Supercoach Gameday Squad finals begin. So I reckon that's where to go. Now, one very quick thing in terms of housekeeping. Gameday Squad originally had the Gold Coast Essendon matchup as a double game week where if you played any Gold Coast players this week, you would get the higher of the scores of either of the two games that Gold Coast or Essendon played this week. So, for instance, if you played a Matty Rowell, you would get whichever score he scores higher in between the Port Adelaide game and the Essendon game. But that's no longer going to be the case. So, basically, every single player just has the one matchup. Whatever they score is the score you're going to get. So, just clearing that up for anyone out there. How about we go through last week's sort of locks, avoids, and pods, Rossco? I know you've got the data there for us. Did we do well? Did we not do so well? Do we provide a little bit of leniency around the threshold, given how tricky of a week it was?
I think, if I'm going to be honest with you, I would put it as average. I reckon we've gone at about 60%. If we were being, you could probably bump it up to about 70, 75. But I think, honestly, just average. Not necessarily the ones that we told you to put, but the ones that we told you to avoid.
Let's drop the segment. Oh, seriously. Man.
And listen to who we're avoiding. Someone build a team of them. You never know. You might win weekly.
Lock who we avoid.
But we'll start off with the locks. So I went with Naz, who only went 99. DR went with Sinclair, who only went 96. So a bit disappointing. But Janath, Rowan Marshall, 144. And then Dawson, still a bit underwhelming, 107.
Ooh.
Fortunately for us, DR, we've bounced back with a couple of Bulldogs boys. Bont, 146. And Tim English, for me, for Janath, actually, 142. Now, I went with Harry Sheasel, 215, which
Not
is
a
probably
bad
my
selection.
finest moment of the round. But then Matt Rao stunk it up a little bit and only got to 100. And then for you, DR, the last lock that we had was Sam Darcy on 71. So if we're counting 99, 96, 171 as sort of fails for the players that we want to be locking in for huge scores, we're going to call it 5 out of 9.
Who saw the two St Kilda boys sub-tunning here? I did not see this one coming, so I was super disappointed about that. But in saying that, I think they would have been pretty popular selections across most formats. So you can't get them all right. But, yeah, I'm with you, Rossco. Pretty average.
Yeah. I think that's the consolation, though, that a lot of people probably pick them. A lot of people probably also pick Jordan Dawson against Collingwood at Adelaide Oval as well, knowing how good of a Gameday squad midfielder he is. Now, onto the avoids. Janath started us off with Zach Butters, 113. I think that says 113.
It does. Now,
can
I just add something very quickly here? His tag did get concussed in the second quarter, so it was unfortunate. The logic was correct, but it didn't.
I'm gonna take 14 points off you, Janath, and call that a tip, mate. Because the tag went down.
Bailey Smith, a partial fade for a bronze, went 128, so he still scored pretty well. Then DR, Jeremy Cameron, went goalless, 55, big tick. I
Just
took
had a feeling.
Mills and Blakey, thinking that one of them was going to get a bit of attention from close, and they went 107 and 104, which is decent, especially when Naz and Sinclair went under 100. Still not super amazing that we've missed out on them, though. And then I went with Nick Dacos. Went 128. Was just quite disappointing if we avoided him, really. And then DR, one of your boys, to finish us off, Dane Zorko. Where did this come from?
Oh, man. Wow.
Purely game style. If you watch this game, our uncontested marking was just off the charts. We were just short kick, just picking him, working the angles, and he was certainly a beneficiary of that. So, well done, old boy. Made us look a little bit silly, or made me look a little bit silly last week.
142 for Dane Zorko, which leaves us with 2 out of 8.
Now, the Jack McRae discussion.
Oh, of course, we do have Jack McRae there as well.
Are we happy with that outcome?
Absolutely, we
it's
are.
A good call. Yeah.
So Jack McRae,
73.
73.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want. Now the pods, we've got a little bit better with the pods actually. Started off with me, with my man Wilkie, who only got to 62. I thought we would do a bit more of a keepings off job than we sort of did, but Essendon were obviously a lot better than I expected. Janath went with Tristan Cherry, the pig at Ninja Stadium. I don't know why we didn't all pick him. How was he a pod? Because he went 171 and was huge again on that oval. DR took Liberatore for 107, which is decent. Janath went with Tom McCarthy at Marvel for 96, which is decent again. And DR went with Kennedy for 95. Janath went with Norton for 67. And then Took Miller, 126.
Oh, nice, Janath.
Choo. Now, to finish it off, we've gone pretty strongly to end here. We've gone with DR's Bailey Dale, 146. Huge score against the Eagles. And my forward selection of the round, who I was very pleased with, Dylan Moore against the D's on Saturday afternoon with a big 143, playing that sort of increased midfield time with no Will Day. So I was very happy there. We'll call that an 8 out of 10, which gives us, what are we calling it? 5 and 2 and 8 is 15 out of 27.
We can do better. We can do better.
We can do much
We're
better.
going to do better this week, boys. Yep.
Let's do it. Well, to do better, before we go on into sort of the matchups for this round, Dia, I'm going to just give a little tidbit into sort of the psyche that I take when looking into players and matchups to target in the last rounds of season. So I'm just going to try to bring this up somehow. Just if you actually want to, oh no, here we go. So I'm just going to bring up a picture here. So when we have a look at players in the last rounds of seasons, I was talking to you boys off air that there are 3 sort of players to be targeting, in my opinion, for players that should perform above the expectations because they have something a little bit extra on the line. The obvious one being Brownlow Fancy. So I don't know about you boys, but I think if we're thinking about the Brownlow Fancy this week, I'm thinking about Nick Dacos, Jordan Dawson, Noah Anderson, possibly a Matty Rowell type, the Geelong boys, Holmes and Smith, all fighting for that 3-vote game. That might push them over to win that Brownlow medal. And then you've got the captains of teams and underperforming sides that just want to finish off the season strongly. So I'm thinking players like a Saki Merritt at Essendon, a Patrick Cripps at Carlton, other teams, Connor Rozee, Seth Butters, those leaders at Port Adelaide in Ken Hinkley's final game. And then you've got the ultimatum, the teams that are playing for it all the marbles that need to make finals. So you got your Doggies boys and you got your Fremantle boys. It could go one of either way. You have the players that could stand up and get those extra stats, or otherwise, in a game where there's no 300 points that must be allocated, you might see slogfest where everything is in the trenches. You don't see much easy pill on the outside, and it could just become a quite bleak fantasy GDS type of game. So just some stats from last year. So there were the top 6. This is for Supercoach, by the way, but I feel like it would translate quite well over into GDS as well. The top 6 fancies, leading fancies in the 2024 season going into the final round were Patrick Cripps, Nick Dacos, Lockie Neal, The Bont, Sarong, and Merritt. And they ultimately scored in Supercoach 106, 186, 166, 116, 109, and 135. Any score above 100 in Supercoach is really, really good. So you can clearly see that all of these players gave that little bit extra. Some of them, including our skipper, Paddy Cripps, obviously had a little bit more on the line, try and get into finals last year as well. But it just goes to show that this is some of those things that we just need to take into account when picking some of these players this week. The other thing, Coleman medal. But I would fairly say that unless Jack Gunson can kick a bag with 25 this week, that Jeremy Cameron has it all but locked up. So, DR, I'll hand it back over to you to go through the fixtures for this week and give us a bit of the good oil into the fixtures that we should be targeting.
Well, let me tell you, Thursday night at 7:30 p.m, we have Essendon versus your boys, Janath. Essendon versus the Blues. And I won't give it away now, but I think I've got a very nice pod selection from this game that could reward you for the week. So that could be a big one on the Thursday night. Maybe a few Carlton players that we haven't considered recently. Then we go in on the Friday night to Collingwood versus Melbourne. I think there may be a particular Collingwood midfielder that most of us will be playing this week and possibly not avoiding for the first time in a little while. Then we go into Port Adelaide versus the Suns. Now, we know that Port don't have a lot to play for, but in a way they do, because it's obviously Kenny Hinkley's last game and they are farewelling an absolute champion in Travis Boak as well. So I really think that the Port boys will come to play here, and it's not just going to be a walk in the park for the Suns to just get over the line. Then we've got North Melbourne versus Adelaide. What's going to happen in this game? Adelaide against North Melbourne. Well, it's first versus, what are North Melbourne now, boys, on ladder these days?
16th.
Yeah.
16th. So looks like a good matchup. Will they be resting any particular players? I'm not too sure. Maybe something to keep in mind, but could see some big ceiling scores there. Talk about some potential big ceiling scores here. Richmond versus Geelong. Now, boys, I think in a way we may need to tread with a little bit of caution because they are now in a position where they may be able to rest some players completely from the game, maybe during the game, in game. So it's a wonderful matchup for the Cats, but just tread with a little bit of caution, I think, in that one. West Coast versus Sydney. So two teams that, again, don't have a lot to play for, but Sydney have been absolutely smashing it up lately. Couldn't quite get over the line last week, but I'm very keen on some Swans for this round. Got the Giants versus the Saints, and I think this will be a lot closer than what other people may be thinking here. Is this going to be the game of the round? It has to be, I think. The Western Bulldogs versus the Dockers, and this is an elimination finals game, boys. So those players that are big game players, expect them to feature really prominently during this matchup. Second last game of the round is going to be another banger, and it's the Lions versus the Hawks. So not a heap of big names to look out for in this one, but Rossco did absolutely nail the Dylan Moore selection, so there may be a couple of hidden gems in this one. And this won't actually count, as Janice just mentioned, but we do have Gold Coast facing Essendon, but won't affect our GDS side. So there are a few juicy matchup, boys, and I think that there's a few easy locks for us this week.
Awesome, mate. I think that provides the perfect segue to go into our locks, which, DR, you talked about the fixtures. Do you want to give your first lock of the week?
Look, I think this is going to be a really, really easy one. This bloke, look, in 2024, it was a year like no other. I don't think he's quite reached those heights this year, but looking at the numbers deeply, he's got pretty close. He's elite, this man. It's Isaac Heaney, and what a matchup against West Coast. He can do it through the midfield. He can do it up forward. So I can easily see this man getting 30-3 this week against West Coast, and he'll want to end the season in really strong fashion. So I think that Isaac Heaney is an easy lock for the week, boys.
Very nice, mate. I like that you haven't necessarily started with the name that would pop out straight away, DR. So you've gone a little bit left field. I didn't actually have him listed down as a lock, but now that you think about it, he's more than definitely a lock there, mate. Rossco, kick us off with your first lock for the week, mate.
Just going on with Heaney, I know it's not GDS scoring, but in his last two against the Eagles, he's gone 165 and 150 super coach. So he does like the matchup, definitely. For me, I'm going to take the name which does pop to your head. I'm going to take the Bont in a must-win game against Freo.
Very nice, mate. I think, like Bont's record at Marble against Freo and playing in basically must-win game as the captain of your club. Yes, maybe the Brownlow may not be in reach this year, unfortunately, starting the year injured, but like you say, Rossco, I think easy pick, isn't he? All right, I'll give my first lock then. And look, we'll talk about some Geelong boys a little bit later, but I'm going to go with Saki Butters. I think, as you mentioned, DR, playing Gold Coast, who's quite a porous midfield. We saw what Tom Green and Finn Callahan did on the weekend against that Gold Coast midfield. Playing against them at home, in front of the home crowd, with Ken Hinckley's final game, Travis Boak's final game, some of these Port players will have to come to play. And I think the Sack Butters just epitomises the Port culture through and through. So that's going to be my first lock of the round. And the second lock, I mean, one of the best players in the league. Very, very fortunate to have been given an all-star card off this man last week.
Oh, you jammer.
Jordan Dawson playing against North Melbourne. Like, there's going to be some criticism which the club will have to cop with the Isaac Rankin incident happening as well. And I think if a player is going to stand up from the front, it's going to be Jordan Dawson. Now, a couple of weeks ago, we were wondering whether he was as good of a pick as he purported out to be playing against West Coast. The game was close. Dawson scored 150 plus. I can't see a reason why. At Marvel, it's not a danger game, but we have to consider the North is coming off probably their best win of the season as well. Arguably, maybe that Melbourne game, the start of the season, is up with it. They will come out and put up a fight. And I think Adelaide will have to weather some blows. So Dawson should stand up in the midfield. And like I mentioned, another one of those Brownlow fancies. Can he lock up the Brownlow possibly with a pre-vote performance on the weekend? We'll hand it back over to you, Rossco.
All right, let's go the easy kills now, I think. Hopefully. Bailey Smith versus Richmond. Lock him in. Let's do it.
Very nice. Do you have any other cats you want to mention, or you going elsewhere? Actually,
I'm gonna be here a while.
Yeah. You're going to be here a while. All right, we'll give it over to DR.
All right, now this is assuming that he'll be fit and ready to go this week. I really missed him last week. It was like a dagger to the heart. But Brodie Grundy, surely coming up against West Coast, this man needs to absolutely dominate. We saw what his mate Peanut Laddams did last week. Banged out a 120, if you don't mind, against the Cats. I reckon Brodie would have been on the sidelines having a look at the Peanut running around and saying, I'm the big boy around here. I'm going to come back next week and I'm going to absolutely dominate against West Coast. So, Brodie Grundy, get him into your rucks.
I think Brodie Grundy might have been questioning how serious his concussion symptoms were watching that masterclass from Peter.
What do I see here?
No, okay. No, we'll go on to Peter Laddams another time. Possibly another segment tonight.
All right.
Another
Can I
lock.
pose one question? Here? If Peanut Laddams, they can't drop him after that performance. Do you get thrown up at all if Laddams and Grundy are named the same side together?
Well, they can drop him, and they probably will.
Oh, I'm just saying he was arguably best time for them.
I don't think, bro. Nah. Do you know what? If Brodie Grundy gets 70% game time, I still think he can bang out a decent 150 against that mob. So, no, I'm still playing him. Yep. Even if Peanut's lined up, I'm still locking him in.
All right, there we go. You heard it here first. All right, Rossco. Sorry, you go back on with your third lock.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the man who I said to avoid last week. How hypocritical of me. But against a weak Melbourne midfield, I think we have to play him this week, and that is Nick Dacos. Another one who is possibly chasing a Brownlow. And Collingwood actually do need to win, because if they lose, I believe they're a mathematical chance to miss finals, assuming the Suns win.
Yeah. No, it take a lot for them to not make finals, but you're correct, mate. In terms of another one of those Brownlow chances that he is probably the favourite right now. 3 votes should get it over the line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any other locks you want to put out there before I go through some?
No, you go first.
All right. I mean, Geelong. We can keep going on. There are so many names that we can talk about. I'm going to talk about Max Holmes. I mean, had a poor game by his standard on the weekend, but now comes up against a softer matchup. One of the things which I saw on the weekend playing against Sydney is that we suspected that James Jordan was going to go to one-off Smith or Holmes. He went to Holmes and not Smith, hence why it was a bit hard to sort of predict Smith going to that 130, but one of them was always going to go off whoever was in tag. This week, shouldn't get the tag. We saw what Harry Sheezel, in a very similar role to what Maxi Holmes basically plays, did against Richmond. 54 touches, 2 goals. Could Maxi Holmes do the same thing? And if one of them is to get rested, I don't see Max Holmes being that type of player. So lock him in this week into your GDS defenses. Rossco, DR, do you have any other locks you want to put out there?
Yeah, one that I wanted to check out there. I think he's had such an underrated season, this bloke, but Brian Myers. I don't think he's the type of bloke that Geelong will necessarily look to rest. This bloke's in his prime, playing some super footy at the moment, getting right there in the midfield. So I think Myers is going to be a really good shout. Talking about the obvious one here as well, Jeremy Cameron. I think he could absolutely go nuts. And one thing that we do need to keep in mind as well is the fact that Nick Boston will be missing. And he has been, some are saying in all Australian form, he's been an absolute rock, a general down there in a pretty young defensive line for the Tigers. And coming up against Geelong without Vlosten, Jeremy Cameron could be a very, very bad man. And even if I want to throw out another name, even someone like a Brad Close, he could even have a bit of a day out as a bit of a different player up forward. So I won't say any more for now. I might leave them for my pods because I've got a few names down here.
I think there's a couple more. I'm probably going to play them. I just think playing back at home, playing against St Kilda is probably just a good matchup for them, enough to call them a lock in a 7 defence. I'm not going to say they're going to be the best scoring defenders, but I think Ash and Whitfield, we probably have to play both. I don't think we can leave one of them or either of them out against St Kilda at NG. I think it suits them really well. So I'd probably have them in defence. Although I wouldn't go as far as to put them up in the same tier of scoring as Bond, Bailey Smith, Holmes, so on and so on.
Awesome. Well, boys, we've talked about so many locks here. We're going to have to recap it. I've got one more to top it off. I think a Gold Coast mid is going to go off this week. And Willem Drew hasn't necessarily been tagged, but now with Ollie Wine suspended, does that mean that Drew gets a bit more CBAs and he can take a bit more accountability for Rowell and Anderson? We saw that GW's put attention into Rowell on the weekend, but they couldn't stop Anderson. So I think I'm going to go with the Brownlow chance here and say that Noah Anderson is a lock this week. He should stand up as the captain. Poor loss against GWS. I think he's going to stand up this week. Good win for Gold Coast.
Good call.
All right. Let's go into the avoids. Now, we found this a bit difficult in previous weeks, but I think I might kick us off this week. We'll take the new ball, and say that Tristan Cherry is my avoid, my biggest avoid for this week.
Wow.
And coming up against Adelaide, who we know that whilst Riley O'Brien hasn't been as sort of limiting in weeks gone by, in the last couple of weeks, he's come up against some good opposition. And Tristan Cherry is in that same caliber. I just think that Cherry capitalised on the easy Richmond matchup, but he didn't capitalise the previous week, which is something that perhaps, whether it's just against GWS, he just wasn't necessarily up to it after coming back from the suspension. But I think that he may not have the ceiling off of 170 like we saw last week. And for that reason, I'm happy to go elsewhere for the rack options this week. We'll go with you, Rossco.
Well, very interestingly, I am actually also not keen on another ruckman, which could be setting us up to pick the same rucks this week. I think I'm going to avoid Tim English.
Ooh.
I think it's a tough matchup coming up against Darcy and Jackson. I know English is in good form, loves playing at Marvel, and it is a must-win game for them. But I just think they're rucks with better matchups. I think Gawn playing on the G against Darcy Cameron. I think Roll Marshall going up against Briggs, and if Grundy gets up against West Coast, are all three better options than picking Tim English against the two ruck setup, Darcy and Jackson, which I think can slow him down a bit as a ruck that scores well around the ground, and he gets a lot of his points from going forward, taking a mark and kicking a goal. I don't think Luke Jackson and Sean Darcy will let him get away with that so easily in what should be a must-win game for both teams.
Great insight there, mate. And DR, who's going to be your first avoid?
Well, I've just had a ruckman on my list as well. And you did just mention him, mate. Darcy Cameron coming up against Max Gawn this week. I just don't think the big fella's going to get much of a look in. It's been a turbulent season for the D's, hasn't it? Obviously looking for a new coach now with Goody going. And I think Big Maxi will want to end on a really, really big note. So I don't think that you should be looking near the Collingwood ruckman this week. But if you're looking at Maxi, I think he could be looking pretty solid.
Do you want to double down another avoid there, mate? Or do you want to throw it over to one of us?
Yeah, I'll avoid Jonty Fall. No, I'm joking. I won't go that low. I wanted to get a tick for the avoids for once, mate. Let's aim low. I won't aim that low then. I'll go for another bloke that really let me down last week as a pod, and that's Tim Taranto. I'm not going near Tim Taranto. Some may be looking at him as that experienced midfielder to lead his young team into the last round of the season. But for me, nah. Sorry, Timmy. You had your chance against the Roos last week and underperformed. So I'll be avoiding him this week.
All right, mate. Jeez, poor Timmy. Timmy.
Yeah.
Just
Sorry, Timmy.
that's fair enough, mate. All right, Rossco, who's going to be your second avoid?
All right, I'm always the one who seems to blow it up and drop a
Come
big
on.
name.
Come on.
So I'm going with Jack Sinclair.
Ooh.
One of your boys too. Wow.
I think it's a tricky matchup against the Giants, and his scoring as of late, especially last week, has been amazing. Now he is taking the kick-ins, but it's just the way that we're playing. If we play this sort of loose chip kick mark, then yes, he'll go well. But it seems like we played against Essendon the week before that against North Melbourne, and the week before that against the D's. It was just a very sort of scrappy kind of rush the ball kind of game. There wasn't really much semblance to it. The Richmond game on the G was different because we really controlled the ball and didn't do much with it. But I think if we get another sort of scrappy game like that, that's low scoring, then it doesn't really give much opportunity for that sort of seagull, chip mark kind of ball. And I don't really like it for Jack Sinclair. Now, Wangani Miller, probably a little bit different because he'll be playing midfield and he sort of just runs around and roams freely. But for Sinclair, maybe less kick-ins, less sort of chip mark stuff. I'm not sure if I like it.
Fair
Bold, but
enough,
I
mate.
like
That's a big call.
Yep.
Big call.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to double down with two. Now, we said it last week in terms of Jack Macrae being a void. I think we go back to that same well. The time on ground is still not improving for him. Playing GWS away, yes, I feel like there are a lot of good forward options this week, especially amongst the Geelong boys, some of the Adelaide boys as well. And so Jack Macrae is one that I would look to avoid, just with some data on that. So over the last 10 games, GWS is the second hardest, or compared to players' average, they typically have -2 disposals on that average over the last 10 games relative to a player's average. So they're a hard matchup in terms of getting the ball. And I just don't think the GWS game style, which is run, is very conducive to the style of play that Jack Macrae has. So that's one of my avoids there. On the flip side, boys, I'm not too sure how this Brisbane Hawthorn game will look like. It is going to be it's going to be one of those games where I think we might not see a 120 score at all, like from a game day squad perspective. And from that reason, a player that's really stepped up in the absence of Lockie Neal, Josh Dunkley. I think that perhaps he may get tied up in a bit more of an accountable role this week on a Jai Newcomb type. And for that reason, I think he's a player that I wouldn't mind avoiding this week. Now, last week, we mentioned Jack Macrae as the locking horns selection. This week, I'm going to put two boys out there, Luke Jackson. So Luke Dogger Jackson, a player that had been getting CBAs, not just as a ruckman, but as a midfielder. He had 80% CBAs a couple of weeks ago. There's been a definite role change. In the last couple of weeks, he's now gone down to 53 and 52% CBAs, so just the ruck CBAs, and especially with Nat Fife in there, even, well, really, it looks like Sean Darcy's taking a lot of the ruck mantle. He's having 87% ruck time. So whilst Luke Jackson's getting a little bit of ruck midfield time, he's not getting as many ruck CBAs as he once did. So perhaps now in a tough matchup against the Dogs with strong midfielders, arguably one of the best midfielders in the comp, is Luke Jackson a player that you want to avoid this week?
I think it depends.
Carry on. Tell me why.
I think I need to look at the composition of my forward line and who I definitely want to play first. Because off the top of my head, I'm thinking I'll be playing Bailey Smith, I'll be playing Myers, I'll be playing Jez. I'll probably pick
Thilthorpe
against North.
Yep. Sean Manor, if you have him.
Yeah, you could take another Cats player.
Yeah.
That leaves two spots. Could we pick Pickett against Collingwood, Caleb Daniel? It's hard.
There's definitely some pods out there, mate.
Matt
for sure.
Kennedy. Will Matt Kennedy step up for his new club?
Kennedy. That's an interesting one.
That's the thing.
Like if it comes down to Kennedy versus Jackson, let's say, which way would you lean? I'd personally lean Kennedy because he's just been ultra consistent.
Yeah, I'm going Kennedy, I think.
Yeah,
Rossco?
it's hard to say. I can't quantify Jackson's role all that well.
You can't
Say
sit
for
on the fence,
midfield-
mate. Give something for the viewers. Jackson or
say for
Kennedy
midfield
right now?
time, you would say Kennedy, but I think Luke Jackson does have a sort of higher scoring ceiling. You know, if he bobs up and kicks a few goals, he plays midfield time. He needs to kick the ball more because that is his bit of his drawback. Is that he handballs it a lot. If he can get the ball on his boot and bob forward and kick a couple goals, he can turn up quite easily. But will he do that? I don't know.
All right.
He
So
didn't do it last week and they got smacked, and he didn't score very well at all. So
we shall see. Boys, is there any other pods that you avoids that you want to put out there?
Not for me personally.
nah, I think I'm all right.
I had two other ones, but I'm happy to put them out there. Tom Green. So, Rossco, you were mentioning that the Saners are a bit of a tricky matchup in the fact that they're quite good in terms of restricting oppositions from scoring that are clearance sort of types of plays. I don't think this will necessarily impact Finn Callahan as much, but possibly there may be a bit of a drawback to Tom Green. And with so many good midfield options this week, I think that Tom Green is one that you could potentially avoid. And then the other one, this might be a bit controversial. I was talking before about Brisbane Hawks being basically a game that you can't really get a good read on. Dylan Moore, like how will he's not getting the CBAs, and that's something that's quite interesting in terms of his scoring's upticked, but in terms of CBAs, he's had 12, 13, 19, and 25% CBAs over the last 4 weeks. So it's nothing special or anything to do with Will Day's absence necessarily.
There you go.
And so perhaps he is around the ball a little bit more, and the Hawks need a win as their vice captain will probably step up. I just don't see a world where, like we saw Shea Bolton on the weekend against Brisbane, he scored 34 or something really low, 40 points in GDS. I don't have the exact score offhand. Very similar players in terms of impact. Probably Moore is a bit more of an accumulator, but he won't be able to run around getting uncontested pill like he did against Melbourne on the weekend. So from that perspective, perhaps he may be like an F7, F8 option, but it's not one that I would be locking into my sides and may actually be earned on the side of avoiding just given the circumstances around in that game. Is this sort of ludicrous to think given his recent form?
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Give us a lot to think about.
I'm going with you. I'm not going against you.
Don't do that.
I'm not that.
Rossco?
You can put it out there. You can put it out there and we'll come back to it.
He doesn't agree. He doesn't agree. That's right. Well, look, we're a team effort here, but I'm happy to stick by Dylan Moore as a player that may not be as rosy as he might look. So for this week,
I think it's just hard to find good forward options.
It is quite hard to find good forward options, mate. All right, let's go into the pods then. This is where we can really elevate our knowledge here. We'll start off with you, DR. Give us. Oh, sorry, Rossco. You haven't started us off yet. Give us.
No, I think it's DR, isn't it?
Oh, whoever wants to go DR.
I'll give you the chance. I'll give you the chance not to take my pod because I think I got the pod of the week.
Oh, pod of the week.
Pod of the week.
Well, I'll go with my second one. Actually, I'll leave this one. I don't reckon any of you guys are going to get this. The ladies' man. We were talking to him earlier with the earlier podcast, and he did mention that he was looking. Or was it John O'Carroll? Actually, was looking to go Errol Goulden as a VC this week. So I think that Errol could be an extremely bad man and have a big game against the Eagles alongside Heaney and Grundy as two of my locks as well. So I'm going to go with Errol, the Holy Trinity, to add to the Swans this week.
Very nice, mate. That's a great start. Had him as well. Rossco, do you want to give your first pod?
Yeah, pod of the week. This is, boys. All right. Who am I? I scored 129 in GDS last week. there's a player in a WA club that shares the same surname as me, but we're not related. I play for one of the teams that we support. I'm a midfielder. I wear number 29.
Number 29. George Hewitt.
It is George Hewitt.
Georgie boy.
Georgie Hewitt against
George
Essendon.
Hewitt.
Coming off a 129 last week. I think he can go big again in a game that you guys probably win. It's not going to be a farewell game for Vossi, but it could be a farewell game for about half the list over at Carlton. But George Hewitt probably won't be one of them.
That's a whack, isn't it?
I think he'll score well.
That's a whack.
I think he'll score well.
All right, Rossco. Look, I'll take that from you. That's honestly fair play. Fair play. That's handy. Look, when we're thinking about pods, I want to stick in that same game, and I've got two. I've got 2 pods.
No, I should have. No, I should have went with it first.
My first one, he's been tremendous this year. One of the rising star candidates for this year, Archie Roberts. So Archie Roberts is going to be my first pod. I think he's playing as the general now in the Essendon defence. You could easily say Andy McGrath, Mason Redmond, any of those picks, I think, are more than okay this week. And I had the stat on me, but I know I can find. I've got the stat for you. So in the last 2 weeks, Andy McGrath, 111 and 148. Mason Redmond, 115 and 172. Archie Roberts, 127 and 115, courtesy of the great blokes on the ball. They do a great job over there on their webpage. But basically, Essendon defenders, there's more ball to go around and less people. No Jordan Ridley. I think at least one of them is going to score quite well, especially given Carlton. We move the ball forward with minimal aim most of the time. So Archie Roberts, Andrew McGrath, take your pick there. The other one, also from that same game, Zach Merritt. If Cooper Lord is concussed and Alex Chincotter's not named, we've sent taggers to Merritt in the past, but I think that, again, one of these captains in underperforming sides, we can say the same for Max Gawn. I think he's going to score quite well from a GDS perspective. And yeah, that's where my second/third pod is going to be. He's breathing a sigh of relief here. I think I didn't get one of his players, which is good.
Yeah, look, I've been thinking a lot about this. And this is a player who has had a super, super frustrating season, a super frustrating last couple of seasons, to be quite honest. He's recently come back into the side, and I've just got this gut feel that he'll want to end the season with an absolute bang, and it's Sam Walsh. I think Sam Walsh could be back this week. You got him. Nice.
I've just be elevating his trade value.
Yep.
This
He's just giving Carlton a drive by the last year. Rossco just gone absolutely whack.
Dane's finally signed one person, and look at them. Oh, look, we can.
I know. Yeah, that's
hang
on. And there we go.
Yes.
But no, Janath, I think that your man, Sam Walsh, he's just going to be hungry. He's going to be hungry to end really strongly because he hasn't been able to do much this season, been injured, out of the side. But yeah, he's going to have that hunger to get a nice 30-plus possession game for us, I think, buddy, and run his absolute backside off. So, Sammy Walsh, nice play for the week. But how are we going to fit them all in? There's so many nice players.
Mate.
It's going to be tough.
100%. Awesome. Love that pick there, mate. All right, Rossco, give us your next pod.
All right. Before we do that, I'm just going to quickly show you. I'm going to do some live shopping here because I back your pod selection in, Janath. We've got an Archie Roberts here for $2 on the market. Gold. We'll take that straight off there. If we get 50 likes on this video, guys, Archie Roberts Gold will be going in the Contender squad this week. Ooh. If not, he'll be a big stash for the future. But if we can get 50 likes, I'll play that in Contender this week. My second pod is going to be James Peatling. I think he's one that could capitalise on Rankin being out of the midfield. I know he hasn't had significant CBA time, but I think it still does give James Peatling a bit of a bump. And while his scoring hasn't been great across the season, if I just quickly get his numbers up for you, he is, where are we? Only averaging 91 across the season. Playing against North, increase in midfield time. He scored 90 again last week. I think he could be one to watch.
Very interesting,
nice.
mate.
I love that. All right. Do you have one more pod you want to give?
I don't know if we've mentioned him, and I don't know if he's necessarily going to be a pod, but have we mentioned big Riley Thilthorpe so far?
No, we haven't.
No.
Very nice.
I think,
He's a pod. He's a pod. Definite pod.
Yeah, look, we talked about, the Kennedy versus the McRae type discussions, but I think this man is well ahead of those guys. You want to have a big game. Wasn't the best start to last week's game. Obviously had a really important moment, but I think this week you'll make amends for that. And I'm looking for him to get 100 plus. So the big caveman, Riley Thilthorpe, your man, Janath. The thrill seeker.
I love it. The thrill seeker he is. All right, boys, I'm going to do a little bit of a who am I for my next pod here. So, who am I? I scored 76 Supercoach points, but 135 GDS points on the weekend.
Chad Warner?
Not Chad Warner. Rossco,
this has to be a player that kicked a lot of goals but didn't do much else.
I can tell you that he didn't kick. So he kicked 3 goals, but he also went at 47% disposal efficiency. He had an 80-point game day squad last quarter.
What?
He plays for Geelong.
Shannon Neal?
Not Shannon Neal. His initials are SM.
Shawnee Manor.
Shawnee Manor it is.
Shawn
Manor scored 139. He was the leading scorer in the Sydney Geelong game with GDS. He scored 80 points in the last quarter alone. Absolutely filthy animal. So take a look at this stat line. This is Shawn Manor's stat line. I'm just bringing it up here. But I think playing against Richmond should be quite a comfortable win. Not a player that's probably going to be rested, but like Shawnee Manor is just. This was his last quarter stat line. Hear this: 7 disposals, 6 kicks, 4 marks, 6 tackles, 2 goals, 1. You take that in. That's a pretty handy game. That's a pretty handy game, let alone a quarter. So Shawnee Manor, I think, is going to be a great pod this week. And then I'll round us out with the pods here. Callum Mills. He's been a player that's been quite consistent throughout the season, in the latter half of the season, playing against West Coast, Optus Stadium, open ground. Him, Nick Blakey, take your pick amongst these Sydney defenders. We talked about Goulden before, we talked about Heaney, talked about Grundy, but I think some of these Sydney defenders may also perform quite well. So why don't we just say Nick Blakey / Callum Mills? Honestly, go full jugular. We've got a lot of players this week that we have put out there. Let's do a quick recap then.
All right.
So the locks. We have we have 13 locks. So we're basically saying that 13 off the 22 is locked in, which is
locked in, done.
I'll go by the positions actually. So amongst the defenders, we say that Max Holmes, Lockie Whitfield, and Lockie Asher locks. Amongst the midfielders, now we're going to have to do a head count here because I feel like we've got Jordan Dawson, Nick Dacos, Zach Butters, Isaac Heaney, Marcus Bontempelli, and Noah Anderson. So we have 6 midfielders there. We have 3 forwards, Jeremy Cameron, Brian Myers, Bailey Smith, and we have 1 ruck in Brodie Grundy. So pretty happy across the board there. Then the avoids. So we got Tom Green, Tim English, Tristan Cherry, Josh Dunkley, Jack McRae, Dylan Moore, Darcy Cameron, and Luke Jackson. Then amongst the pods, Andrew McGrath, Archie Roberts, Zach Merritt, Shawn Manor, Nick Blakey, Callum Mills, Sam Walsh, Errol Goulden, Riley Thilthorpe, and George Hewitt, and James Peatling. So quite a lot of names there. hopefully you guys across our picks, the rationale that we've given, and fingers crossed that this week in GDS, you guys are able to get to those goals that you mentioned a couple of weeks ago on our video across our socials, because we'd really love to see you guys be able to basically smash out GDS and demonstrate the love that we've been able to show throughout the season. How good has this sort of partnership been with Gameday Squad as the years gone on?
Unbelievable. And the best thing about it,
Really
and
good.
I don't know, and a lot of people may not know about these blokes, but, you know, blokes like Tom and Cal, they're fantastic people. And first and foremost, whatever partnership we're looking to get involved with, number one priority for us, they've got to be great blokes. Like, if they're not great people, we don't want to get involved with them. And they tick that box very, very early, didn't they? So a wonderful, wonderful crew. And what a way to play your fantasy football. Card collectors, it's just perfect, isn't it? So I've had a ripping time. I probably haven't got as involved as what you guys got early, but throughout the season, particularly when the Contender comp started up, that's when I got really, really involved, and just got the bug now. Got the GDS bug.
No, that's
Now,
awesome, man.
DR, before we sort of finish up, mate, I noticed earlier on today we had a couple of cars that were getting listed. I know someone in the community managed to get a Diamond Dacos for $30. I picked myself up a Platinum Whitfield and a Platinum Dawson for $2 each. But I think I might have found a card. You mentioned him very briefly earlier on. I'm going to pop him up on the screen. I'm not going to snap him up, but you can have him if you like the look at the price and whether you think it's worth it. He's a good pod this week, DR. The Peanut.
The Peanut.
Ooh,
$1. That's
$1.
unders. That's unders.
What a bargain. Let me tell you, if Brody Grundy does not get up this week, Pod Laddams.
Or can I give you an alternative, DR? Why go gold, mate, when you can go for the diamond? $5. That's the best $5 you'll ever
Where is it? Here it is.
Add that to the flat. Add that to the flat, you reckon?
Get in there.
Janath, before I forget, very quickly, if we're talking about pods, how about your ruckman that's soon to be Rossco's ruckman for his last game of his career against Carlton, against Goldie? Could we be that bold if we're looking to make a move this week?
What if I'm to say that Tom De Koning is going to turn his back on St Kildan's re-sign with Carlton?
Yeah, we don't have the money for him anymore.
They brought out the Brinks truck for Nazaya. They got no money left.
Me and Ryan a 4-year deal. We don't have the cash for him.
Yeah, sorry, Tommy. Sorry, son.
No, but in all seriousness, that is a decent pod. We'll pop him down in the pods list. But look, I think there are safer options this week. But this is one of those plays where if you've got nothing, you're just throwing caution to the wind. Why not? With that, lads, I reckon we call it a day. 54 minutes. This has been our longest sort of preview/review video. We've talked about so many players. In fact, I think this might become a test at the end of next week in terms of how many names we have. So
just to fill them in.
we have a lot of names. We'll be doing a review show next week in preparation for GDS Fantasy finals as well. So stay tuned for that. And hopefully everything goes up well. In terms of our question for you guys this week, I want to say, who is your sort of, who's the player that you sort of grew up watching from whenever you think would have been a GDS star, like a player that is Diamond Nick Dacos type. So that sort of player, when you're growing up, I can't go past like a Diamond Chris Judd in the heyday. Like he was a stat accumulator. I would have loved to have owned a Diamond Chris Judd. What about you, DR?
I'm going to go real left field here. I'll go with one of my boys. This is old school super coach, but he had a really solid 3 years, I'm going to say. Real left field. Give me a Diamond Josh Drummond. Big left footer.
Yes. You know, Tommy Rockcliffe would have been okay as well. Quite handy.
A fantasy pig, mate. An absolute fantasy pig was a rock. Yeah.
Rossco?
Yeah, this is easy for me. Give me Heath Shaw.
Good call.
What about a Diamond Joel Bowden? Plenty of
Oh,
kicks out of the
bit of Joey.
goal square.
There we go.
Yeah, or Jack Lloyd, the seagull.
Jake Lloyd, the Seagull.
The Seagull. Yeah. Wasn't he a massive defender back in
Oh.
his heyday? He was just an automatic lock for me, the Seagull. Just lock the Seagull in and have a good time with him.
Imagine owning some of the goal kickers back in the day, like a Tony Lockett. You just locked him in for 11 goals every week. He gets his 11 by 8 every week. The marks, everything, just
GDS scoring would be
GDS.
made for someone like a Plugger, wouldn't it? Absolutely made for him. Yeah.
But lads, put it down in the comments who you or what a player like that you think would just been a GDS pig there. But we'll see you guys next week. Good luck for this week and keen to hear how you go. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys. Good luck.